The United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement is now expanding its deportation effort, directly impacting Indian migrant families who are living illegally in the United States. As part of this initiative, two previously closed detention centers in Texas will be reopened to hold entire families who have received final deportation order from federal judges. The Department of Homeland Security confirmed this particular move, signaling a tougher stance on immigration enforcement. According to DHS spokesperson, the administration is focused on strictly enforcing immigration law, ensuring that those ordered to leave the country do so. This decision will have very significant consequences for thousands of Indian families who migrated to the US in search of better opportunity, but now at risk of deportation. The opening of the Karnas and Delhi detention centers will have a direct impact on Indian migrants, many of whom arrived in the United States through asylum claims or irregular migration routes. These centers, previously closed due to high operational costs, will now serve as holding facility for families awaiting deportation. Delhi, once the largest ICE detention center with a capacity of 2,400 detainees, is expected to house large number of migrants, including Indian families who have overstayed visas or crossed border illegally. The Biden administration had previously shut down Delhi, citing high costs. But the facility is now being reopened as ICE faces an increased number of illegal migrants in detentions. Similarly, the Karnas Detention Center, which previously housed only adult detainees, is now being reopened to accommodate the entire families, adding over 600 beds. This means that Indian families, including young children, could be held in these facilities before being deported back to India. For many Indian families, this policy shift presents as an uncertain and really distressing future. Over the past decades, a growing number of Indians have entered the US through the southern border, seeking asylum or entering on temporary visas and overstaying. Many work in low-wage jobs while awaiting legal status, often supporting families back in India. With ICE ramping up enforcement, these individuals now face the risk of sudden detention and deportation. The financial burden is also severe, by the way. Many Indian migrants take heavy loans to fund their journey to the US, hoping to secure a better life. Deportation not only shatters their entire dream, but also leaves them in heavy debt upon return to India, often with no economic stability. The impact on children is another major concern. Many Indian migrants in the US have children who were either born in the country or brought at the very young age. If detained, these children could experience severe trauma, being separated from parents or held in detention centers for a prolonged period. Though, let me tell you that the US has already faced criticism for inadequate medical and mental health care in these facilities, with reports of children suffering from stress, malnutrition, and illness. For Indian families who highly prioritize education and stability, this disruption could have long-term consequences, forcing children to leave behind their schools and community. This immigration crackdown is happening as President Donald Trump pushes for largest deportation operations in the US history. Trump has compared this initiative to past deportation efforts, including those under previous president. Now, if this effort expands, more Indian families, specifically those waiting for asylum hearings or undocumented workers, could find themselves targeted for removal. Immigration advocates have raised concern about the reopening of these detention centers, citing inhumane condition and mistreatment of families. In fact, the American Liberty Civil Union has criticized the move, highlighting reports of neglect and abuse in facilities like these. Private contractors such as CoreCivic, which will run these centers, are expected to generate about $180 million annually from detaining migrants. Critics argue that this creates a system where migrant families suffer while private companies profit. Indian families, already facing economic struggle, will now be at the center of the system, enduring legal battles, and the fear of deportation. Despite these concerns, ICE officers also argue that detention standards are humane and necessary to enforce immigration law. Former ICE Deputy Director has defended the move, stating that ICE detention facilities have higher standards than many other state prisons. Supporters of stricter immigration enforcement believe that reopening these centers is necessary to prevent illegal migration and maintain order. However, for Indian families, the reality remains grim. Many will now have to live in constant fear of raids, detention, and eventually deportation, disturbing their lives and forcing them to return back to India, often with nothing left. As the debate over immigration policies intensifies, Indian migrants in the US face one of the toughest crackdowns in recent history. With stricter enforcement, increased detentions, and reopening of detention centers, the future of many Indian families in the US is becoming extremely uncertain. The decision will not only affect those currently in detention but also discourage future migrants from taking the risky journey to the US. As ICE expands its operation, the impact on Indian community in America will be profound, forcing many to reconsider their hope of a better life in the US.